Welcome to the ThinkData Podcast in partnership with DataWorks. And today we are here in New York with Rohan Doctor, who is the founder and CEO of Louisa.ai. He is one of the headline speakers at the AI Summit, which is taking place this coming Wednesday. Someone I've been following for a while now, has got a really interesting backstory. He spent 17 years, I think, just slightly under, at Goldman Sachs before setting up and launching Louisa. It's a really compelling backstory, so I'm looking forward to kind of getting into this. But for those that don't know, they are a collective intelligence platform which effectively uses companies' internal data points, and it creates creates a map of what everyone does in the company and what they know. So it's a really interesting concept, a really fascinating journey today. And I'd be really keen for you to kind of introduce yourself, who you are, and also who is Louisa, and ultimately what problem are they trying to solve?
Yeah, no, thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. So basically, my background, as you said, is 20 years investment banking, 17 at Goldman, 10 as MD, and I really fell into the AI space by accident on the back of this one transaction. So there was this one really large transaction that I closed 4 or 5 years ago, and it was really, really large. And management asked, how did you do it and how can you do it again? And the honest answer was serendipity. I met the right person at the right time internally at a water cooler, and months later we closed this big trade. The second question they asked was, how can you do it again?
Obviously.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, what if one could systematize serendipity with data? It's crazy that in this day and age, two adults need to be thirsty at the same time, chit chat and swap information. Surely there's a better way. And so that's really how Louisa was conceptualized and born.
Interesting. And obviously a company of Goldman's size, you touch about serendipity. It's that chance encounter that led to this obviously huge trade that was obviously recognized or seen by management. How did you kind of take, working for a large corporate, Goldman's, multiple hundreds of thousands of people globally, how did you take that concept, idea, kind of vision, and then begin to turn that into a business?
Yeah. So the idea was pretty clear. It's an everyday problem that we just assume, and I like talking about this by analogy. There's some assumptions people make. For years, you could go to any city in the world, and you could get out of an airport and hail a cab and get to any place in that city, and it was fine. It worked for decades. Then Uber came along and changed the game. Right? It got data to systematize serendipity. All of a sudden, you're suddenly at the right place at the right time with someone who's going to take you from point A to point B. So by analogy, people just assume if they work at any company, but any company with 100 people, let alone thousands or tens of thousands, you just assume, look, I'm joining this company, I'll do my best. I interviewed with 3-4 people, maybe a recruitment firm, maybe the 4 or 5 people that interviewed me, and there's no way I can know everyone. No. I can't deliver everyone's job at most companies is to deliver the firm. Yeah. And they just everyone knows they can't do that because you can't know what and who everyone knows, right? So what we're saying is we've changed the game by creating a map of what and who everyone at your company knows, a digital treasure map. Yeah. For the first time ever, you can go into a company and deliver the full might of that firm. You can figure out what and who everyone knows and start connecting the dots in ways that weren't possible before. And that's really the problem we're solving. We're solving the everyday problem at every large company in the world, which is, finding the right person at the right time. And it takes 20% of people's time on average. That's what McKinsey reckon. Some people, they say it takes 100% of my time. Others, it's like not so often, but on average, it's 20. There's 1 billion knowledge workers out there spending 20% of their time hailing a cab, asking around, email blasts, Slack chats. And, it's the age-old problem of knowledge sharing. And that's precisely what we've finally been able to crack by creating a digital Google map of what and who everyone knows. Because Uber, just taking back to that analogy, Uber was built on Google Maps. Without that, you wouldn't figure out how to get from downtown to the Upper West Side.
Yep.
At a company, there is no map. In fact, recruitment firms do a very good job of figuring out who the various people at the various. We've all drawn that, football, who's
market mapping,
midfield, market mapping, this, that. So now you can digitally we create a map, because with humans, new joiners, leavers, sabbaticals, mobility, the map's constantly changing, and there's no way you can tell everyone to constantly write where they are on the pitch.
No,
you need to digitally track where everyone's on the pitch based on their business activity.
Fascinating. When taking it back to kind of that light bulb moment, Goldman saw the opportunity, you saw the opportunity. On the podcast, we talked to a lot of founders, kind of entrepreneurs, but we have a lot of listeners who are aspirational entrepreneurs, and they're maybe trying to make those kind of first steps on taking that idea and then running with it. Obviously, for you, it's quite unique because Goldman were this kind of, were they your test case? Were they kind of so they would kind of gave you the opportunity. How did you take that, and when did Louisa become Louisa?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people give me too much credit for being brave and leaving Goldman Sachs and, going and doing this. And, honestly, without Goldman Sachs' support, this could never have happened. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There's no way I would have gone from being a revenue generating client solution person in Hong Kong running a big team to suddenly starting Louisa. So what Goldman did was give a very unique opportunity to say, hey, we'll let you build this business within the firm, right? We'll fund you. We'll be your first customer. You'll have, and we trust that you've built many other businesses before, and we trust you'll be able to build this. We know you're not an engineer, but you're a physicist by training. And so you'll be able to get the right people and the right things. So the firm basically gave me a 1 year leash, 1 year funding.
Okay.
And they said, look, if it works, we'll dial it up. And if it doesn't work, we'll dial it down. And we called it Louisa. And you were asking earlier about why. It's again, building on that systematizing serendipity theme. There was this lady called Louisa who was dating this guy called Samuel 150 years ago, right? They got 155 years ago. They got married, right? And Louisa's father was Goldman and her husband was Sachs. That's how Goldman Sachs came together.
Interesting.
So serendipity is all over the place. The way the country maps are drawn, the way companies are formed, the way, just everything in the world is, a random walk, serendipity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's called Louisa. It also, now that we've spun out, means, it means female energy and leader energy and things like that. Anyway, so the opportunity was really to create something within the four walls of Goldman. And if it worked, the deal was we'd let you spin it out.
Okay.
And they stuck true to their word. 4 years later, we spun it out as an independent company. Goldman are not a shareholder for a very simple reason that we couldn't otherwise talk to some of the other very large banks.
Yep.
But they are our first customer. They are a permanent customer. And they've had a first mover advantage in this space. And so shall I tell you a little story about what happened after the first year? So basically, and I'll do this on a no-names basis, but basically, Louisa read a Singapore newspaper about a $10 billion semiconductor plant being built. It figured out that Susan used to work at that company.
Okay.
Because Louisa plugs into the HR data of the firm.
Yep.
And it figured out that she was still in connection, still in contact with senior management there, but she had friends there from when she was there. And this is someone who's sitting, let's say, in London in a compliance role, not even client facing, but humans are humans. Everyone's, got friends, family, went to university, has
it's that 3 degrees separation
colleagues.
piece, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And so she was the person with the relationship. Louisa also figured out that she didn't know Jack, who's the project financing person sitting in the US.
Okay.
So what Louisa does is emails Jack for his expertise, connects him with Susan for her relationship, and gives them both that intel that, hey, there's something here, right here and now. And months later, they closed $6 billion of financing. And so that's how serendipity was systematized again. And so if you can do it once, you can do it 100 times. And that's what we're trying to do for companies at large.
I think it's a really clear breakdown of what, A, the problem you're trying to solve, but also how, I know it's not simplistic, but how simplistic that process can be by connecting people up, especially in a company like Goldman, where there are people, as you say, you've got this person in London, and then actually people know people and people have knowledge as well. Do you think, going back to when you struck that kind of, did that deal, then Louisa started to become a thing, was there a natural entrepreneur they were tapping into here, or were you always kind of quite comfortable, not comfortable, happy in large corporate banks? You know, where did that kind of entrepreneurial streak come from?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, yeah, look, 20 years in investment banking, 17 at Goldman, you know, pretty institutionalized person.
Yeah.
I would say that, that said, within Goldman, I always had, hey, Ro, go and figure out the structured credit business in Holland, or go and see if you can sell this into Finland, or go and start a business from scratch in Asia covering banks, which I did for 10 years. And so there were always entrepreneurial things within Goldman. There's a ton of entrepreneurial people at all large companies, right?
Yep.
It's often stifling because look, it's consensus driven, there's regulated industries, and a lot of people who you have to convince. So I reckon actually there's a lot of what they call intrapreneurs. But if you can be an entrepreneur within a company, I actually think it's easier to be an entrepreneur in the outside world.
Interesting.
Because you know, in the outside world, you can have a conversation and convince someone, right? You don't. Within a large organization, you've got to convince, even though you personally like it, you may not use that personal capital because you've got 6 other things going on and 10 other, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bunch of really smart entrepreneurial people who are within large companies who will create great companies, and there are many examples of that.
So then you, obviously, as you just alluded to, Goldman are your first customer.
Yes.
They are, you know, allowing you, obviously, through the structure and also through the fact they want you to grow that business, speaking to other large corporations. Talk me through the steps of getting Louisa turning it into its own business, because obviously you're very active in the space. I know there's obviously been a lot of recent news about you guys, positive news, but it still involves running a business and setting something up. So talk me through those steps.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say spinning out a business from a large company is something I would not highly recommend. It's, you know, it's like whack-a-mole. You know, there's 100 different things that happen. You solve a tax issue, then there's an accounting issue, there's a privacy issue, there's this. But we did that. That's another big testament. So I think, you know, I'm pretty proud of the team in terms of doing a couple of things. One is taking an idea and making it an actual platform that users use. Tens of thousands of people use this at, you know, various organizations now. The second is spinning it out of the firm, where we have, you know, clean assignment of the IP, and, you know, it's our company and so on, and now Goldman is a customer. And then the third is, you know, we're working now with a $100 billion private equity and VC company. They've been a phenomenal thought partner. We have, you know, done things together. There's no other company that comes to our office every Thursday and we get on a whiteboard and we draw things
Amazing.
And create things. And now we're working with a large Canadian bank where it's very much the same thing. We're in New York. We're going to the, you know, downtown office, midtown office, drawing things. So for me, it's constantly about teaching and learning and cross-pollinating all those ideas. And it's just a really, really fun business. But you can't do this without a phenomenal team.
Yeah.
And I've got a phenomenal team. All my engineers, my head of product, my CTO, my 22 engineers, they sit in Bangalore.
Okay.
I'm there, several times a year. I'm originally from India,
Okay.
and so that really helps. And now we're creating a fantastic go-to-market team, both in London, in Asia, and in the US. So finally, I talk about Uber, but the ex-head of Uber International for HR is someone who we've recruited to run Asia. He also grew iPhone. He was at Apple as an HR leader, and he grew the iPhone business. He was also the head of HR at a large commodities trading firm called Noble. So he's going to run our business.
Exciting.
An English guy going to run it out of Asia and London for now. And then we've got someone else who's going to be head of North America, which is again something that's under wraps now, but it'll be very, very interesting.
Not messing around. It's exciting times. And I know you obviously spend a lot of time in New York. It's home for you, but you're obviously here for the AI Summit as well. I think, as you said earlier, speaking on Wednesday, I'm really keen to get under the skin of kind of the AI space at the moment, because I know Louisa obviously ultimately is an AI product or utilizes AI technologies. What are your thoughts on the current state of the market in terms of AI, both from an adoption standpoint, from a startup standpoint? How would you sum it up? Yeah,
I'd say, it's a 1-year-old. I've got 3 kids, and right now this is Louisa's definitely the 4th, or as my wife says, the 2nd wife. But this whole ChatGPT, OpenAI thing is now a year old.
Yeah.
Right. And we've all seen all the drama that's come with it.
Well, the last couple of weeks has been pretty hairy.
Hairy. But all that aside, there's just so much opportunity. There's so much going on. It's complete chaos. And entrepreneurs have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I've had to be in for a very long time and kind of doubling down on that space. But I do think that, look, again, taking a step back and making it really simple. We're all wowed by what GPT 3.5, GPT 4, OpenAI can do. You can ask it any question. It can summarize things. It can answer questions. It can write stuff. It's phenomenal. And basically, everyone is super excited about taking that same magic, and it really does feel like magic, and recreating that in the work environment. And that's not going to happen.
No.
And it's not going to happen for a couple of reasons, but the main one is you can take NVIDIA super chips, and you can take GPT-15, right? And you can put it in a large company, and it's just not going to work, because the thing that Sam Altman did was he's resold us back the internet in a very, simplifying it, in a very amazing conversational style. And within a company, there isn't 30 years of public records sitting on the intranet.
No.
There's no SharePoint. There's not investment committee memos. The best data within a company, in your company, sits in your head and your 6-7 people's heads, right? And it's so our point of view on this is ask any question, just like you do on ChatGPT. Hey, who can help me with inflation swaps in France in 3 years, or who can help me with figuring out tax liabilities in Brazil? Whatever your question, and you know how GPT would write that. We're going to create the same thing, which is ask any question, and the answer is always going to be the same. It's going to be Alex, Ro, Cassandra, Vivek. They're the people who can answer it. And I think that, and so within a company, I think that is a possibility. And that's a here and now possibility. And then by recording and all with GDPR compliance and privacy and all the rest, but by creating that knowledge bank within the firm. Basically what I'm saying is all the information sits in people's heads, and ask any question and figure out which head it sits in, and then figure out how to make the machine smarter.
So it's effectively connecting that network, isn't it? And making sure, as you rightly say, data is one thing, but actually knowledge is something completely different. And it is funny you talk about kind of kind of the AI space at the moment in terms of the chaos we've seen over the last kind of couple of weeks from an OpenAI standpoint. What do you think that's going to do for startups now, for people coming into the market? Do you think there's going to be a bit more trepidation, a bit more nervousness around launching a product? Are they going to look at the domain-specific problem they're trying to solve? Is it going to be tech-focused? What do you think a culmination of... Because your product's so unique, and obviously it's, you've identified that and you're going to master it, but what do you think it will be?
I think the honest answer is no one knows the answer, and having that as your true north is a really good thing to have. Everyone's got to give it a shot, right? And if you're just willing to, I was watching the David Beckham documentary, and he was one of the first people who scored a goal from
the halfway line,
exactly. And so that's very rare. You've got to just go towards the goal and keep shooting, just keep taking shots, and eventually something will get in. And so I think people just need to take shots at it. Slack charted as some weird video game with giants and blah blah blah, and then it ended up becoming like the intercompany communication channel, and then it got bought by things change.
They evolved, don't they?
Amazon started as a bookstore, and that's making all its money from AWS. Right? Louisa's starting where it's starting, and we're mastering that space, but there's just so much skill, and I love tapping into founder energy. And I must say, one of the things that I'm very, very big on is paying it forward. So the way Goldman Sachs helped someone like myself create a business by giving me some shelter and funding it and taking it to the next level, in the same way I've told everyone at Louisa, you're all going to start your own companies at some point should you wish to, and we're going to fund it. We're going to be your customer, and we're going to be one or two of our people will be your co-founders, and we'll create companies that all work towards that same direction, because it takes a village, right?
It definitely does.
ChatGPT wouldn't be working without, various... Uber wouldn't work without Google Maps. Google Maps wouldn't work without, some satellites up there, etc. So it's all about working it and putting it all in the same direction.
I like that. It's kind of giving them, as you said, the leg up, that platform that you benefited from. And you talk about kind of creating or promoting the next cohort of founders in your current firm. We have a lot of people listen here who do have kind of aspirations to conceive and launch a business. But what kind of advice would you offer them? They've got the product idea, or they've got the idea. You've obviously learned through making mistakes and you do things right. But what advice would you offer them?
One serious piece of advice, and I would almost have zero deviation away from this, is for them to work backwards from the customer and find out who is willing, not who thinks it's a great idea. Everyone thinks everything's a great idea.
Of course, right? They do. Yeah.
Because they're just saying that to be polite to you on your face. Find out who is willing to part with money for this idea, right? Start with that. If you found one person who'll part with money and say, if you build that, I will pay you for this as a customer, right? If they can get that, the rest of it can fall into place. Like what I've told all my people is find one customer. Louisa for university. I've got people come to me saying, what about a Louisa for universities? A Louisa for the AI job market? A Louisa for the investor? Yeah, find someone who'll pay for it, right? And don't bother going and raising $25 million, which will take you a long time, and sitting down with 40 people and you'll have 100 no's and then 6 yeses, then interviewing 100 people, right? And then 6 yeses to, the same thing. So first you've got to find the money, then you've got to find the people, then you've got to build a product, and then you think about selling the product. Yeah. It's almost insane. Find someone who is willing to pay for the product, and then just come to me because I've already built it, and I'll sell you that part of the product, and you can just literally monetize that, and that can become part of your business.
I think it's some really good advice, because I think you probably touched on a point we're at currently in this market where valuations, investor activity, there was probably up to about 6 months ago a lot of money flying around for companies that aren't making any money. They have no customers. They are tens of 20s of millions of dollars of investment, but with no ARR, no go-to-market, have a great idea. Do you think that probably recent market conditions has probably reset expectations now? As you rightly alluded to, I think getting money out of people is harder now. The cost of money is far more expensive. Do you think that's probably we've now kind of reset and go, hang on a minute, let's slow down a little bit here? Who is your customer?
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, interest rates are not going down anytime soon. No. And every week, the market will think they're going up, they're going down, and the equities will go up and down and so on and so forth. But basically, there's just a whole new paradigm.
Yeah.
And that paradigm is going to be, there's going to be consolidation. So we just bought a company.
Okay.
There was a great company. They raised a bunch of money. They built something pretty good. They ran out of money. The founder had to get a job.
Wow.
And, it was from 10 people to 2 people. And before it hit no people, we took the technology with one of the main people, bought it, right? Give them stock in Louisa,
Yep.
right? And now we've got a 1 + 1 = 3 situation. There are many other companies like that. There's going to be consolidation. I think people just need to constantly do deals that make value,
Yep.
And constantly try and find the 1 + 1 = 3 type equations, because they're out there. There's a asymmetry somewhere where there's some things that you can do so easily that I really need, and by you and me doing them together, we can do it better.
Yeah.
And that's, in a sense, what Louisa's trying to do at a company level. But I just believe that in almost every aspect of what we do, including how we pay people, who we hire, who our customers are, who our vendors are. It's all about partnerships and figuring out the win-wins, including with our customers.
Yeah.
Our customers need us as much as we need them, and it's a partnership.
Well, it sounds like that, because I think you alluded to the VC investment firm who are in every Thursday whiteboarding. It sounds like you've got these trusted partners, paying partners, who actually genuinely want the best for you, but equally they want the best possible product for them. So I think it's a win-win on that.
It's a huge win-win. I was running through the numbers today with someone, and I said, you know what? You've given us about $100,000, right? And you may not realize this, but this year we've spent $600,000 on you.
Wow.
Okay. Because I'm doing my annual accounts. We spent $600,000. I'm not saying that because I'm not super grateful for the fact that you've given us $100,000, but know that you've done something great for your company, because you've, from that $100,000, got $600,000 worth of work that's been done on the back of $20 million worth of technology, right?
Yeah.
But now we will be able to, in the future, monetize that, hopefully, with 15 other customers. So it's a win for us too. So everything has its own win and its own place in the market. And it's about finding that, but being very real about what's the economics for that party, what's the economics for us, and finding things where it's not a win-lose or a lose-lose, which is what every war is about, but a win-win. And that's what we've got to try and find more of in the world at large. Absolutely.
I like that. And I want to kind of close things off with the plans. I know you've obviously got some one pretty exciting hire to announce. You've also got Asia being launched, or growing that go-to-market piece over there. From a technology platform standpoint, what you're allowed to say, please do. What can people expect? Because we're obviously going to tag, we'll share some links to Louisa so everyone can see the product, understand what it is. But what exciting things have you got in the pipeline over the next kind of 3, 6, 12 months?
Yeah, sure. In 3 months' time, that thing where I said you can ask any question, get an answer, that's going to be up and running. We've got a private LLM model, disconnected from the internet, super secure, encrypted at rest, all the full regulatory kind of works. For the next year, I've promised my personal advisory board to only stick to finance, right? Because that's kind of the space we know. We've already got several customers in that space.
Yeah.
But I don't see Louisa having one exit. I think it'll have 6 exits.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's 1 billion knowledge workers on the planet. And those knowledge workers generally aren't sole proprietors. They work in groups. companies,
little squads and
little squads
pods,
and groups and so on. And we're focusing on any organization with 100 to 1,000 to tens of thousands, like 100+ people.
Yep.
And we're going to focus on finance. And I know, even though my brother's a doctor, I know very little about the healthcare system. There are needs for people to collaborate. When someone's sick, there's the head doctor, the arm doctor. They need to all coordinate. It's almost a project when you have a relative in hospital, right?
Completely.
One doctor doesn't talk to the other, You're suddenly Googling stuff and figuring it out on the fly. You're asking about, acronyms and levels that you don't really know about. But you've got to be the project manager and figure all of that out. It would be so cool if you could figure out who's the right person at the right time to ask that. So, for example, there might be, I don't know, a big four management consulting firm, or the McKinseys of this world. Imagine if they could take Louisa and refactor it for healthcare.
Yeah.
That I don't think I don't have a right to win in that space. But someone who has a lot of healthcare understanding has a right to win there.
Could take that out.
They don't have to build it again. They just have to find the customer and create the business. A business, everyone thinks in startup world that a business is basically funding. It's not.
No.
The press doesn't matter. The funding doesn't matter. The PR doesn't matter. The blogs don't matter. The only thing that matters in a business is a stream of customer revenues and customers who are willing to pay it. So start from there. Figure out if there's real customer demand, and then just fit bits of the jigsaw to make that happen. So I see us we'll focus on finance, and legal and consulting are kind of close enough. But healthcare, fashion, LVMH has 80 companies underneath. There's a lot of things. We've got some big fashion investors in our cap table who are saying, wow, one day we want to take it there. I'm like, great, find a co-founder and CEO who's passionate about this space.
And spin it out.
And spin it out. We're gonna create spin outs, and we're gonna create I've never actually thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But we're gonna do spin outs. So just
you can keep that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's from Goldman, so we're gonna keep that playbook.
It's exciting, Rohan. I've really enjoyed it. Really fascinating concept, product, but obviously it's a concept that's needed. It's a concept that's obviously bringing results, a lot of attention, and it's been my pleasure to have you on. I'm looking forward to obviously hearing your speech on Wednesday as well. So thanks so much for your time this afternoon. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Alex. And Alex, given that you're in the recruitment space on AI, one thing I would kind of put out there to people is, I often get people interviewing, and you hit it on the head. The world has changed. Interest rates are higher. The world's changing. It's all about, people think that the company exists to pay them a salary so they can pay their rent and they can do this and do that and whatever it is. It's not. It's the other way around. They're there to create revenues for the company and co-share in those revenues, right? And that's something that we're creating. We're creating a platform where people can, if the company doesn't make money, they won't make money. But if the company makes money, they can make so much money because they're sharing in that revenue stream direct. Forget about, exits and, this stuff vesting over this time, and what if we become a unicorn? Because, the chances of all of that are pretty slim.
Yep.
But what's here and now is the revenues, and if you can co-share in revenues in a big way, there's just a huge amount of opportunity. It's a little bit like, how Goldman used to be. Yeah. An MD would have a very low base and a huge bonus, right? You're talking about back in the day, you'd have a $40,000 to $80,000 base. Yeah. And then everything else on top was bonus. And now people just want, post-financial crisis, all the bonuses went up because all the bases went up because, and so now everyone's just used to these high bases, and it's a lifestyle. It's like clipping the coupon, but you're not taking that. You've got to be aligned with the business. There's a huge opportunity to grow if you've got a platform where you're going to get a sliver of the here and now revenue. And that's the way I'd urge people to start, thinking about their careers.
I like it. Well, perfect time to end. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rohan. Been a pleasure. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Bye.